This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant, and with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, certified hypnotherapist.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. And today on the show, we have Scott Miller. And Scott is a 24-year associate of Stephen Covey and serves as the executive vice president of Thought Leadership. Scott hosts the world's largest and fastest growing podcast newsletter devoted to leadership development, On Leadership. Additionally, Scott is the author of the multi-week Amazon #1 new release, Management Mess to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader You Would Follow, and the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Everyone Deserves a Great Manager. The 6 critical practices for leading a team. Scott authors weekly leadership column for Inc.com and is a frequent contributor on podcasts and webinars. Previously, Scott worked for the Disney Development Company and grew up in Central Florida. He lives in Salt Lake City, Utah with his wife and 3 sons. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Diane and Christine, thank you for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
You're gonna fix me, right? You're gonna fix me. That's why I'm here.
Well, normally we turn to Stephen Covey to fix and organize us.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Great. So, as we were talking pre-episode, we were talking about the classic Stephen Covey literature and how the 7 secrets have just become embedded in today's not only business culture, but personal development culture as well. And a little bird told me that those are being updated and modified to fit our current times. So tell me about that, Scott.
Sure. So it's funny that you call them the 7 secrets, because I think that's an interesting and exciting name. Dr. Covey was the renowned author, leadership consultant, founder of the Stephen Covey Company. He authored this book, can you believe, 30 years ago, titled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In fact, he had many different names for it before it came into publication. But here we are 30 years later. This book has sold 40 million copies in 50 plus languages. And now we have re-released the book on its 30th anniversary, that one of his many sons, he has, I think, 9 children. I think there are 4 boys, if I'm not mistaken, 4 boys and 5 girls. And Stephen Covey, who of course is well known as the author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, which is to this date the world's best-selling leadership book for teens ever. That book has sold nearly 8 million copies. So Stephen Covey, at my sort of cajoling and assistance in the company, decided to kind of modernize some of the application. So although Sean didn't change a single word in his father's book, not a single word, what he did do is add about 1,000 words after each of the 7 habits. Modern day insights, application. Here's how the 7 habits, which really are just principles that govern human behavior, here's how they're more relevant than ever. That book launched last week from Simon & Schuster and is doing extremely well. If that book was eligible, it would have been a bestseller for over 1,000 weeks, because it sells about 5,000 copies a week, week in and week out.
That's incredibly interesting. And for our listeners who don't know the 7 habits, what are they?
Oh, no, you're kidding me. I'm happy to. So habit 1 is called be proactive. And this really is about taking responsibility for your actions in life, right? You're not a victim of your circumstance. You're a result of the decisions you make, right? That's habit 1, be proactive. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind, having a plan for everything you do in life. Dr. Covey used to call it measure twice, cut once. Habit 3 was put first things first, really was the habit of prioritization. Habit 4 was think win-win. This is not a do habit, it's a think habit. Have a mindset of win-win, not win-lose, not lose-win, but think win-win. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is the practice of empathic listening. Most of us listen with the intent to respond, not the intent to understand. Practice 6 is synergize. This is the art of valuing and celebrating diverse opinions. And then, of course, habit 7 is sharpen the saw, which is the habit of continuous improvement. The first 3 habits form, Diane, what he called the private victory, sort of mastery over self. The next 3 habits formed the public victory, mastery with others. And the last habit was sort of a circular habit that encompassed them all. Hey, pretty good for not having been asked that question for a decade, huh?
Wow, yeah, you memorized that. So I have some fun stories about that. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had a really passionate teacher. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I was a little turkey. Nobody could control me. I was a little rebel. But this one teacher hands out that book.
Yes.
The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And he makes us read it. And this is what we're graded on. We have to write papers on. We have to discuss it. And I swear in my 10th grade year, it sunk in. It didn't hit me until a couple years later. But I was first introduced then. Changed my life. I've bought that book and give it away numerous times.
Wow.
So I have to buy it because I am constantly, anybody that shows interest, I'm like, take it, it's yours. And then I just buy a new copy. And I recently have that. And in my therapy practice, I have done the teens book. I actually have it on my phone.
Wow.
And there's a children's book as well.
Yes.
And it's
7
wonderful.
Habits of Happy Kids.
Yes. And
Yes.
so when I have little kids in my office, the 7-8-year-olds, we'll kind of spend one session on each thing and talk about what that looks like in their own life. So this is very near and dear to my heart, very personal to me. I use it, I practice it, I'm well read and familiar with it. So this is so incredibly exciting.
Well, Christine, thank you for that. Sorry, Diane. I think the reason it's resonated is because Dr. Covey did not invent these habits. He simply uncovered, sequenced, named them, because these are principles that govern human behavior. This is an important point. He did not write the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient People.
Right.
He wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In fact, after nearly 25 years in the firm, what I have learned the most is the difference between having an efficient mindset and an effective mindset. I'm a very efficient person. I like to get things done, check them off. I move through things very fast. That's actually fine in many areas of our life, but when you try to be efficient with people, efficient in your relationships, that is when you fail. You can only be effective with people. I think of all the wise, many things that Dr. Covey was quoted as saying, I think the most profound is, with people, fast is slow, and slow is fast. And that is in essence kind of, the book encapsulated. When should you be efficient and when must you be effective? It's a huge learning for me in my 40s. I'm a late bloomer, unlike Christine, who's an early adopter in her, in her high school years. Thanks a lot for showing me up.
I think it does come down to that learning mindset and that ability to really open up and say, okay, I see myself as an efficient person, but I need to have this skill set of effectiveness as well. I don't need to let go of my efficiency. However, I do need to embrace this human side of my leadership ability.
Diane, you just called out, I think, part of the genius in Dr. Covey's work is because I'll bet a lot of your listeners and viewers are like me, that their careers, perhaps even their roles as parents, have been built on this efficiency skill set. Dr. Covey never demonized an efficiency mindset, right? I mean, I'm the kind of guy that gets up at Saturday at 4 o'clock. I write my Inc. article till 5. I'm at Home Depot at 6. I'm planting the marigolds by 7. The car's washed by 8. The lawn's mowed by 9. I'm ready to go. This has worked very well for me in certain parts of my life, but it's worked against me in most of my relationships because I try to take that same talent of being super productive and getting things done and moving everything really fast, and I move it into my marriage. I move it into my parenting. I move it into my work relationships, and you cannot be efficient with people. You can be efficient with some texting, maybe some meetings, but not with interpersonal relationships. So I think the big learning there is, like I said before, when to use the efficiency mindset and when to flip into an effectiveness mindset. And it usually has to do with when are you with processes and when are you with people.
I really love how you put that. Sorry, go ahead, Diane.
I was just going to say, when is it? What are some of the core indicators that you don't need to be being efficient right now? You need to be effective.
I think in the midst of what is going on in the world, I don't even know how to use terms to describe it, right? We're in the midst of still a pandemic. In some cases, it's on the rise. We're all quarantining. There's various levels of back in the office kind of, enterprise going on. In many cities, there is enormous social unrest right now with in the riots that are happening, the calls for social justice. Everyone is on edge. I think that now more than ever, our ability to see listening as a leadership competency is vital. Our ability to view listening as a relationship competency, as a human competency, is more important than ever. Speaking is rather selfish. Listening is quite selfless. And as I mentioned earlier, habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is counterintuitive for most of us. Because for most people who have a career, for that matter, if you're a stay-at-home parent, or you're retired, or you're in college, most of us have been taught to be persuasive in our communication, right? Have a big vocabulary, be very charismatic, perhaps be loud, have a good articulation skills. Anybody in a profession has been taught to be in influence mode, convincing mode, sales mode, mission, vision, values, system, structures, strategies, goals, repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. Those are valuable skills. But what gets lost in that is the empathy, is the understanding. Because when most of us are listening, Diane and Christine, we're on our own narrative. We're on our own agenda. We're on our own timeline. We're on our own field of experience, and we're listening to respond, not to understand, because we want to solve someone's problem, right? Inherently, it comes from a good place. We want to help someone else. Oh, I've dated him. Here's how to break up with him. I've worked for her. Here's how to manage that. I've shopped there. Here's how to return that. Most people don't want you to solve their problem. They just want you to validate them. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It just means you have to show empathy and you understand. So I think right now, the best human skill is to listen and check your own field of experience, check your own agenda, and really summon an unprecedented level of focus and attention, and resist all the distractions, your social media, all of your needs, and really listen with the intent to understand, not to solve or fix.
Beautiful. So you said so much. I want to touch on so many things here. I'm going to try not to get lost. So first and foremost, there is a part in the book, if I'm remembering correctly, that talks about basically knowing yourself before getting into a relationship. Do you remember that part?
That's much of the first 3 habits, yes.
Yeah, so he really talks about don't be in a relationship-centered life. Know who you are, know what your purpose is, know what your identity is, and know what your mission is. Until you have those things, you're going to be blown around like the wind if you run into relationships and you're relationship focused. And that can be with work too. If you really don't know who you are, what you want, you're more likely to kind of be shuffled around. You're not going to have those roots in the ground. And ultimately that does lead to unhappiness. Now I'm living life for you, not for me. It doesn't feel good, right? I love that.
Christine, you should consider therapy. You'd be good at this. You'd be good at this.
So something else I wanted to comment on, because I think it's just so beautiful that you said it. There's 2 more things. Is one, this idea of going slow. So I'm having a session with someone. It's their first time in therapy. They've never done it before. And a habit, a behavior I witness all the time, and you probably see it too, is I have so much to say and the emotions are coming and people try to talk through their tears. And the best thing I do is I go, pause, man, let it out. That's been waiting to come out. That's ripe and ready. Let it out. It's our body's natural way of creating space, of moving energy, of doing all these things, right? But even holding space for that pause. People try to talk through their tears, right? Like I can't slow down long enough to just cry.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
Briefly. I think all of us don't recognize how much pressure there is to multitask, to do more, to assimilate, to consume, and to produce in every aspect of our life, personally and professionally. And the people who are the most influential people that I know are the people who are slower, who are more deliberate, who are more intentional. And they're not trying to do 7 things, they're doing 1 or 2, but they're crushing it, and you know them for that. I made the mistake 2 years ago of moving down from Park City, Utah, down to Salt Lake City, Utah. But that wasn't the mistake. The mistake was moving 2 blocks away from the state's most popular ice cream shop, where my 3 boys like to visit. multiple times a day. And so I have 3 sons, 6, 8, and 10, and they want to go to Hatch Chocolates. It's about 3 blocks away, and they want to ride their scooters and their their hoverboards and their bikes. But no, Scott, who's an efficiency father, has to get them in the car and drives them there, get them in, get the ice cream, and get them back in the car. And I tell you, it was last summer that I had this like epiphany, and I said, "Oh my gosh, the goal isn't to do this as fast as possible. The goal is to do it as slow as possible. I should be leaving my phone at home. We should be walking over. Instagram is going to be there when I come back." And so I had become so addicted to my career, my brand, staying relevant in the company, all the things I committed to. Dr. Covey used to say, success at work never comes at the expense of failure in the home. Now that can mean that you could be with your parents, your in-laws, your children, your marriage, whatever your role in life is. No success at work compensates for failure in the home. And I mentioned this epiphany I had. My youngest son at the time was 4. He's almost 6 now. He would always defy gravity and drop his ice cream on the floor, right? I'd have a meltdown and I would look like a lunatic. You know what? It was $1.20. Laugh about it. Pick it up, put it in the garbage, smack a new, piece of ice cream on it, and walk home and giggle and laugh. And I've really tried to separate the value of slow. I think it was Brendan Bouchard, the famous YouTube
I love
sensation.
him.
Brendan Bouchard basically said, nearly everything in life is better done slower.
Yes.
And that's so counterintuitive to who I am.
Yeah.
And do I think who most high-performing people are? I'm trying to make it my mantra every day. I'm sorry, Christine, I interrupted you, but
no, it's perfect. It's perfect. And in the Motivation Manifesto, if you have not read that, I highly recommend it. There's a whole chapter. It's my favorite book. I read it about 5 times a year. I have it on audio and I make everyone read it. But one of his declarations out of the 9 is we must slow time. And he really talks about taking ownership of your schedule, of your time, of your experience. And I think we all know this as busy adults. High performing or not, high performance has another level to it, but time goes by really fast.
But everything's working against us, right? The need for competition, the need to see what everyone else is doing, the 24/7 day and the global society, every force is working against that. Competition and education and careers, and you got to resist it.
We are absolutely socialized to be in the culture of the grind.
Yes,
we are absolutely socialized to have, and especially in this work from home environment, people not anticipating and respecting the work from home boundaries that need to happen to have a balanced life in a work from home environment. It's so important to honor and hold that sacred, the personal time, the self-care, the family element, all of those things when you're in the culture of the grind, that the culture of the grind does not honor. The culture of the grind does not honor sleep. The culture of the grind does not honor taking breaks. The culture of the grind does not honor these are your work hours and this is it, or even vacation time.
Does not care about your legacy.
Does not care about your legacy. Does not care about your message or your mission or any of that. It's just produce more, be efficient, produce more. And that creates a lot of wreckage, this culture of the grind, this culture of the hustle. And I think that on a lot of levels, that has caused more damage than anything, because we go into the next thing happening in life with this must grind attitude. And I think the beauty of this COVID era that we are living in is that we have all been forced to slow down. And these discrepancies in respective time, respective boundaries, they've really become very highly important, because now people are working from their homes. They have their families in the same place where they have their office. They have to set those boundaries, or else the home environment does fall apart. Whereas if you can physically go to an office, you can separate those. So that has created this very, very unique time in history where we have all been called to slow down and really assess and strip away that which does not matter, to go slow, because we have no choice.
And I think it's even worse than what you just described, because I think there is a level of paranoia. And who's taking a vacation day? I haven't taken a vacation day in 3 months. You might be seen as dispensable, right? Or you're paranoid about losing your job. I mean, I'm an executive officer. I'm not worried about losing my job. And if I do, I got options. I'm calling you two for a job. But I haven't taken a vacation day. I haven't taken a vacation day in 90 days, right? Because you have this ingrained need to be present and be relevant, and I think it's probably more damaging right now than we even realize. It's harder than ever to create the boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Scott, you bring up so many wonderful things, and you too, Diane, and I'm really kind of, I had this visual as you guys are talking and it's like the grind, and I had this little quote of, let's leave the grind up to the salt and pepper shakers. like I'm imagining these humans just getting ground down, or when you think of the grind, like grinding your teeth and chipping bone away, and it's not particularly a pleasurable visual. I don't see pleasure in the grind, right? There's nothing aesthetically pleasing or particularly...
Not when it's sustained with no hope in sight, right? I think there's seasons in our life. There's seasons of imbalance. I don't have any idea what work-life balance means. When I'm asked that question, I say, you know what? There are seasons when I'm in balance. There are seasons when I'm out of balance. And it has to do with my decisions. But right now, there doesn't seem like, it's sort of like being in Cuba, where it's always summer. I don't know if it's always summer in Cuba. I'm thinking somewhere near the equator, right? But right now, this is going to be a really long season, and people are going to have to be more deliberate than ever, as Diane has said, to set some boundaries and take control of their physical, mental, social, emotional, physical health.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can I hear an amen?
Amen. Amen.
So the other thing that I picked up on that you were saying that I really appreciated. So I work with a lot of couples, and one of the main
Hey, can we
topics,
take next Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Can my wife
You
and I
got
have
it.
next Tuesday
Yep.
at 10? Would you mind?
Sure. I'll bump the other person out. So you actually said something really specific, and you said people want to be heard and validated, and no solutions are fixing. And this is actually a concept that men specifically struggle with far more than females. So females, we're pretty good on, like, we'll give advice, we'll kind of dip our toes in, and we'll do a little bit more of a bounce. Girls are socialized to bounce because, we kind of know. And if you've ever been in an office environment with a bunch of women, you learn real quick what that bounce looks like, because the wrong women and, cat fight, right? And not to degrade the gender or anything like that. It's just real.
No, I get it.
But so on your level, when you said that, it really piqued my interest of, as a man, did you learn this from the book? Is this a life wisdom thing? Is this a marriage thing? Where did you get this? And how could you share it to other males in a way that they can really understand?
Well, let's be clear.
It's vital.
Because I understand the principle does not mean I apply it in my life, right? So if my wife were here, she would call my you-know-what out. Dr. Covey used to say, to know but not to do is not to know, right? And I think it was Voltaire that said something like, common knowledge isn't common practice. I'm not an anthropologist or a therapist by any stretch, but I understand there probably is some connection to, I have learned this skill for 30 years in corporate America, that my job is to fix and solve as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's my job. I'm paid to solve problems as fast as possible. Whether it be balance a P&L, will it be, lubricate a supply chain, whether it be to terminate someone, whatever it is. I bring those same management leadership principles home. And when my wife comes home from Orange Theory class, back in the olden days when there was an Orange Theory and you went and exercised, and she might have some interpersonal conflict with other people in the class, she doesn't want me to whip out my Franklin Covey principles and try to fix it. She wants me just to listen to her, validate her perception paradigm, and be quiet. She does not want me to fix it for her or to Covey her at all. So I think some of our leadership management methodology, when brought into relationships, isn't helpful because not everybody wants you to fix them.
Right. And there are no cookie cutters. So there are certain people who have preferences for solutions. So I think having that awareness around it, that awareness and consciousness to say, okay, you've just told me that. I feel the impact of that.
Yeah.
What would you like?
Yeah.
Would you like just a good ear? Would you like a solution, what would you like? Well, what is your preferred response to that? Because that teaches us how to show up for other people.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how vulnerable it can be to ask someone what they would like.
Ladies, where have you been for the 11 years of my marriage? Why are we just meeting today? Well said, Diane. Yeah.
It's a simple research principle, and a simple research principles can resolve a lot of conflict before conflict happens.
I think it has to do with intent too, right? Because my intent is good. My intent is to minimize my wife's interpersonal conflict. My intent is to bring her joy. My intent is to help her compartmentalize and not let something that happened at 9 o'clock wreck her 2 o'clock. I think as we are in these effective relationships, as we are more effective, declaring your intent is also really valuable. My intent is to help you. What would you like from me, right? It might be to fix it. It might be to coach. It might be to just listen. It might be to be quiet. It might be to hug you. To your point, Diane, every situation might need a different level of empathy or engagement.
But unless you slow down, unless you have that power of the pause, as I call it, you will react your way into whatever your natural state is. So
Wow,
if
so
my
well
natural state is to solve and fix because I'm a consultant and that's what we do,
Yeah.
then I'm going to go into that process mode with them. I'm going to start digging on process and everything. If I take a pause, I let it hit me, and then I simply respond with that empathy statement of what do you need? What would you need? A solution? Do you need an ear? What do you need? If I take that and I allow myself to get slow enough, if I allow myself to really just not rush it, not rush the response, sit there, I can be so much more of a conscious leader, an employee, a partner, whatever relationship role I'm in, because now I'm actually in a relationship. As Christine says, there's a bounce. I love it when Christine says there's a bounce between the two, because there can be, because now it's not just a one-sided push of something.
Can I build on that?
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago, I was interviewing the famed linguistics professor, Dr. Deborah Tannen. And of course, you know who she is. Anybody who got a communication degree in the 80s or 90s read all of her books, right? And I was interviewing her. She's a linguistics professor from Georgetown. And she said something to me that changed my life. She said, everyone has a subconscious emotional alarm clock that goes off in our heads when we think the other person should stop talking, right? Christine's goes off at 28 seconds. Diane's goes off at 48 seconds. Everyone has this alarm clock. It goes off, and then we interrupt, because we want to move it along, we want to solve the problem, we want to, for whatever reason. And that really effective communicators are aware of when your alarm clock is going off in your head, and instead of interrupting, instead of fixing or responding or asking probing questions or evaluating or interpreting questions, you just let your upper lip touch your lower lip. And you close your lips together. You don't grimace. You just very gently close your lips together, and you count to 10. Let's practice it.
And the program manager just had a heart attack.
I know.
Oh,
10 seconds of silence. I know, 10 seconds of silence on public radio. But it's that if you can practice that 10 seconds of not talking, Dr. Tannen says the odds that the other person will land their point, finish up, or even disclose something, especially valuable or sensitive, is exponential. I think it can transform people's communication styles and their relationships if you can minimize your propensity that comes from a good place to interrupt and to solve. It really has provided me a tremendous level of respect that I show others now. I bet you if you were to replay this conversation, I'll bet that I would have interrupted you less than perhaps I would have a year ago after I learned this principle.
And there's also another tactic for that, is that whenever you want to interrupt, override, something like that, there's something within you that is creating that. So I have a format that I will use with my clients, and I'll do this when I get an executive who just wants to come over the top of everyone on their team, of me, of everyone else. And the format is when I, and maybe it's interrupt or come over the top. So when I, and whatever the action is, I imagine that and whatever they imagine is happening. And I feel, and this is whatever they're feeling in their body. So if they're start to feel anxious, angry, whatever their assumption or feeling is. And instead, I will recognize that and then what they're going to do instead. So maybe it's pause and hold your lips for 10 seconds and then allow them to finish. Maybe it's instead, I will address what's making me angry. Instead, I will do something, but it's a consciousness and awareness again that comes with that piece of seek to understand first before being understood, but also slowing down. That allows you to come into the one thing truly you have control over, which is yourself. You can't control anything on this exterior right now. We can't control what's happening in our world right now, but what we can do is we can look at our reactions, and by inserting that and going within briefly and going, okay, what am I imagining right now? What is this reflexive loop telling me right now that is based on my past experience or my trauma or my whatever within this company, or maybe it's company politics that are bugging me or whatever it is. And now that I understand that, I can definitely show up differently and consciously because it's my decision.
Yeah. And also I wanted to add, before Scott gets off the line, that, you're talking about how your wife doesn't want to be Stephen Covey'd. I have an antidote to that, which is she really does, because that's you practicing skills, that's you being mindful, that's you integrating what you've learned and really trying to let it be part of who you are. And you're not doing something to her, you're offering her gifts. The principles really help you be a better partner, a better person at work, a better person in general. So when people are reading things, I actually ask them to integrate and practice and let your partners practice their new skills. Whether you're in the mood for it or not, we don't grow unless we practice. And as adults, we're not as fast of learners as kids, right? We need repetition. We need practice. We need like, hey, you're having one of those moments and I just read this book on this. Can I practice on you really quick? And even if that's so annoying, it's like, I'd probably rather you practice a skill than be unskilled, way too emotional, do the opposite thing than what I need, rather than going like, hey, you know what? Yes, practice that skill. And can I offer you feedback when you're done? And all of a sudden this can be fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That permission piece is perfect. Can I practice on you? Can I offer this for you? And they have the opportunity at that point to exercise consent and say no. But if they say,
I'm not ready for that, right? Or
but
I'm
if
not
they,
there right now. Yeah.
but if they say, yeah, sure, what do you have to offer? Then it's a free for all, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I think to your point, Christine, there's really not a black and white to this. It's just, wow, you have something to offer. Let's offer it. Thank you, Scott, for offering what you have to business therapy today. It was amazing having you as a guest.
I feel like I took more than I gave, so I'm honored to have been with the two of you. Thank you. I think my marriage might just improve in a few moments as I walk back into the kitchen. Thank you for your gift to me.
We loved having you.
I'll send you a copy of my book too.
Please do, Diane. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant.
Christine Salvo, marriage and family therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and certified mediator. Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great morning. Bye-bye.